Another Facebook Live of the Golden View podcast. Shifting gears a little bit from our normal BC Lions football in Vancouver, Canadians coverage at this time of the season, or this time of the year, I should say, to talk with Chris Welch, General Manager and Governor for the Victoria Shamrocks of the Western Lacrosse Association, because I want to bring in the lacrosse flavor to the podcast as we head into the stretch drive for the WLA season and look forward to the playoffs. Chris, how are you?
Good, Ben. How are you?
Good. So let's just dive right in here. So let's talk a little bit about the last few games. I have Friday night's press release where you guys knocked off the Coquitlam Adanacs. And then obviously Saturday night's game. I didn't see a press release on the website. And I'll just mention that website here. It's victoriashamrocks.com for those that want to check out the team. How did Saturday night's game go against the Nanaimo Timbermen?
It went well from our perspective. We came away with an 11-5 win against an opponent that, is our island rival. And it's always a very tough matchup for us. Nanaimo is always a tough place to go and play. But our boys did really well. It's the best game, frankly, I think we played in a little while. So that was encouraging. It was a hot night in the Frank Crane. I got to tell you, it was a sweatbox in there and lots and lots of water. Water through it, and Nanaimo put up a good fight. But let's face it, they were a pretty tired team. We were catching them at a really, really tough spot in their schedule. They were coming off. It was their third game in 4 nights, and they'd played the night before on the road in Burnaby. So even though we played the night before in Coquitlam, our trip for just going from Nanaimo to Victoria was a little easy, or Victoria to Nanaimo, I should say, was a little easier than theirs. So, we caught them and we took advantage and got the W, and now we're on to the next one.
Okay. So let's talk about the next one too, because that's Wednesday, July 24th. You have the Langley Thunder, or actually you're in Langley to play the Thunder. Game time starting at 7 there at the Langley Event Center. Why don't you give me a little bit of a preview on that one? Because looking at your schedule before we start, this Wednesday in Langley to face the Thunder, back home, have the Thunder see you, so it's a home-and-home series. Thursday, August 1st, you're in one of the lacrosse havens of British Columbia at Queen's Park Arena to face the Salmon Bellies. And then that's the end of your regular season schedule.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's here already, but we're drawing to a close on 2024, and we're got 3 games against 2 surging teams. Langley's been on the move up the standings, as has New West, after they took a little bit of a dip after a strong start, but they've found their way again. And so it's going to be 3 tough games. Those teams, Langley and New West, are both battling for positioning and playoff spots. So they're really meaningful games for them. Us, we clinched first place back on July 10th. So in that respect, we haven't had a lot to play for other than just the natural instinct to compete. And we'll be in for a battle on Wednesday. We know it'll be definitely cooler than it was in Nanaimo, thank goodness, despite whatever the gods bring that night. We'll have air conditioning in the LEC, a nice modern facility there. And, then, like you said, historic Queen's Park on August 1st, and always a pleasure and a treat to go and play in Queen's Park.
Yeah, I was at Queen's Park last year for the Mann Cup. I saw New West play 6 Nations. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because I was doing some research. But let's talk about a couple things here, because I know we briefly discussed that off the air. This thing about you guys going undefeated. I mean, now you're at 15-0. There's 3 games left. I know you mentioned it's not a big deal. For me, it was more just curiosity than anything. And I couldn't find it on Google to see if a team had ever, in a WLA regular season, gone undefeated.
Yeah, it's a good question, and not one I can answer for you, I'm afraid. The closest I'm aware of is the 2001 Victoria Shamrocks, back when the WLA was a 6-team league. It was before Nanaimo had come back in, and they played a 20-game regular season at that time. Right. The Shamrocks went 19-0-1. They had a tie in New West in Queen's Park. That was the lone blemish, but that's as close as I can recall, and as closest anyone can recall. But, really our focus isn't on whether or not we go undefeated. Our focus is on elevating our level of play and getting ready for what's going to be a very tough battle, getting through the WLA playoffs. And that's been our goal all along. It was never a goal to go undefeated. It's certainly a goal to get to the playoffs and make some noise.
Yeah, and I was just actually looking at your website the other day too, looking at team highlights when you got provincial championships, league scoring champions. So that season that you mentioned, you guys won the league championship in 2001. Looking down here, Ted Dowling was the league scoring champion that year. How are you seeing things shaping up on the team? Because I was looking at your roster, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see some of the previous episodes I've done. I spoke with Paul Del Monte, WLA commissioner, to start this season. I had Brad Challoner from TSN and Coaches Calls podcast talking a little bit more about lacrosse back in March and things like the WL or the NLL season for the Warriors. But one thing that I wanted to highlight too was looking at your roster and recognizing some names almost immediately. Guys that are currently in the NLL, and that guy being your captain and leading scorer, Jesse King.
Yeah, first of all, I'll just comment on Brad Challoner. He's also the voice of the Victoria Shamrocks. Brad is our play-by-play guy on our home game webcasts, and he's now a Victoria resident. We're lucky to have him, and he's doing a great job for us. Yeah, Jesse is the face of our franchise these days, our team captain and our leader on and off the floor. He's the real deal. He's the reason. He's the captain everywhere he plays for a reason. He's a natural born leader. He's a phenomenal talent, and he holds himself and everyone around him to a very high standard, and really sets, is a big part of carrying our culture forward, which is, making this a great place to play. He was joined in the top 10 in NLL scoring by another one of our players, Clark Peterson, who is in his first year with us. Clark was with the Halifax Thunderbirds, and we got him on a interprovincial transfer from the Brampton Excelsiors, as he chose to not play in the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, the Pro Field League down south this summer, as was the case with Jesse. So we're very fortunate to have two big weapons in our lineup like those guys. But Clark's missed a bunch of games. Jesse's missed a few. We have a very deep team. We have a very young team. Maybe not the youngest team in our league, but we'd probably be right there with them. Average age is 25, and they're only eligible to play for us the year they turn 22. So everyone's 22 and up kind of thing, and our average age is barely 25. We've got a lot of rookies, and we're getting a lot of mileage out of a really young and a really talented squad.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too. And I always try to do research, and I was looking at Clark, and Clark had a 40-goal, 104-point season for the Halifax Thunderbirds this past year in the NLL. Just some other stuff that I had highlighted, including Jesse's play as well, was Chris Origlieri for you guys. Just looking at your press release from the other night, 8-0 on the year, leads the WLA in goals against average, save percentage, and wins. And you guys have got two keepers in the NLL, both from Orangeville in Ontario, which I found interesting. And I'm not as educated about that part of lacrosse, so I need you to sort of tell me a bit about that.
Orangeville is a little town about an hour and a half out of Brampton, Ontario, kind of a bedroom community for Toronto. And it's got maybe, 25, 30,000 people, something like that. And it is an absolute lacrosse factory. They just produce elite players, one after the other, year after year after year. And it's really, really unbelievable when you look at it. It's a story that should be told much, much more often, how a small town like that produces so many legends in our game, and so many, and it just keeps going, and they never have an off year. And Chris comes to us by way of his first year of senior A lacrosse. Last year he's with the Junior Northmen, and they had an undefeated season. Chris led them to a season which the Northmen went 20-0, and he was the starting goalie in 19 of those 20 wins.
Right.
And he was full-time goalie with the San Diego Seals in the NLL, and he was one of 3 finalists for the NLL Goalie of the Year, along with Nick Rose and Matt Vince, I believe, was the other. And
I know Matt Vince very well.
Yeah, and
don't know him personally, but I know his play. Yeah,
so do we, and we had him here in 2013, and it was unfortunately it was one and done. But anyway, Chris, we're hoping for a much longer stay. And the other thing that's remarkable, Chris, is he won't even turn 22 until December. He has a late birthday. This guy's 21 years old, and he's got the lacrosse resume of a guy much older. And when you meet him and you look at him, you would never guess that he's just a 21-year-old, just at the very, very, very beginning of life and lacrosse career, really. And what a bright future he has in our sport. And him and Cam Dunkerley is his partner. Cam's only just turned 24 as well, and he's a little bit further up the road. Actually, he played his junior in Orangeville, but he calls Caledon his hometown, just up the road from Orangeville, and he still lives in Caledon, actually. And they're both number ones in the NLL. The Cam with the New York Riptide, and so we're one of, I think, 2 teams in Canada that has 2 number 1 NLL goalies on their squad. Us and Six Nations. Six Nations. Doug Jameson of the Albany Firewolves and Warren Hill of the Halifax Thunderbirds. So, the key to our success this year, I always say when people say, what's been the difference? And it starts with goaltending. Goalie is an absolute key position in our sport, as much as it is in hockey. Very similar. If you don't have your goalie hot, you're not going to get very far. And we're blessed to have 2 really capable guys that our team puts a high degree of trust in. And, we can go and just relax and play our game and not have to worry about whether or not we're going to get the save, because 9 times out of 10 we are, with those guys being back there. And it's just a real huge foundational piece for us to have the 2 of them.
Right. And so let's do a couple things. I was doing like I said, I'm always doing research off the air or before we start, because I wanted to cast ahead a little bit now to the playoffs. I know maybe it's a bit premature. These guys still have 3 games left. Take me through a little bit about how the WLA playoffs work, to educate me, but I know people are also listening.
17 league. Yeah.
Sorry.
17 leagues, 4 teams, top 4 make the playoffs. 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. First round is a best of 5. And then the winners of the first round move on and play in the final. And then the WLA champion gets to represent BC in the Mann Cup Canadian National Championship, which alternates between Ontario and BC, the only 2 provinces that have senior A lacrosse. This year, the Mann Cup will be held in Ontario. So it'll be a best of 7 series starting on September the 6th back there. And
good to know.
Next year it'll be back in BC again, like it was last year at Queen's Park, like you mentioned. And hopefully it'll be at the Q Center in 2025, which will be the 75th year of the Victoria Shamrocks. We're going to be celebrating a big piece of history there. 75 consecutive years of senior A lacrosse. I mean, okay, maybe minus the 2 COVID years, but that was the case for everybody. But 75 years, the Shamrocks have been around. So we're early in the planning stages of doing a lot of special things to celebrate that next year. And but first, this year we got the playoffs, so it'll all get underway in August, the first week coming out of the August long weekend. First round will get underway, and right now it's anybody's guess as to who's going to be there. I mean, like I said, we've got first locked up, so that's there, but the other spots are still up for grabs. So nobody's mathematically eliminated yet. All 6 teams are still in the mix. So we're interested to see how it all plays out.
Right. And so then I was actually trying to find it. Maybe I can find the host site of the 2024 Mann Cup. How do you feel about a Mann Cup berth this year? Is that too premature to think you guys are going to be there, or is there? I mean, obviously, it's not a cakewalk through the playoffs, right? But just by the way the season's gone for you guys, the research that I've done, I know we said the record is maybe not a big deal. Feels like it's kind of like your guys' year this year, just from what I've been reading and researching.
Well, we've certainly put that expectation, I guess, on ourselves that people are going to look at that and think it's ours to lose. But when you're actually in the middle of it, it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, as soon as you enter that first game of round one, your regular season record no longer matters. It doesn't make a difference whether you won, lost. It's a new year, literally a new season, and you're starting from the same starting line as everybody else. And New West has done some things to improve their team as we've gone along. Langley's done some things to improve their team as we've gone along. And on and on. It goes down through all the teams. So it's going to be a battle, and nobody's looking too far ahead. One of us will have to get on the plane and get to wherever it's going to be in Ontario. And it certainly looks at this point, the same expectation has got to be on the Chiefs when you look at their record and the roster that they've put together, which is full of, all world talent and, including a bunch of guys who used to play for us, and we know them to be pretty good ball players who will be, on the other side this year potentially. So, but long way to go, and it all starts, for us, with game one of round one, and you just take it one game at a time from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for doing this, Chris. We're going to wrap it up there. Really appreciate the preview. Breaking down the season, your time. Looking forward to following you guys. It's a little harder to get lacrosse sometimes on TV and radio, especially if you guys make the Mann Cup. But hopefully I get a chance to see you here. If there's a lower mainland game in the playoffs, especially in the first two rounds, I'm going to try and be there because hopefully I'll get to somewhere close. I don't know if Burnaby's going to make it, but New Westminster sounds like a spot, or maybe Langley's a spot to see you guys, because I'd like to have a chance to see some live lacrosse. I did see Burnaby and New West this year, but it was in June at Bill Copeland Arena. Burnaby was hosting New West. So middle of the season game, not quite the same atmosphere as when I was at the Mann Cup last year, watching the Chiefs play the New Westminster Salmon Bellies for the actual Mann Cup. Yeah,
the Mann Cup atmosphere is, you can't beat that. The enthusiasm and the energy that creates is second to none in our sport.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Chris. We're going to wrap